of the characterization of that statement, including lethality against U.S. cities, when all of those National Guardsmen and Marines have conducted themselves with the utmost of professionalism, defending our federal agents, Americans, who deserve to be able to do their job to deport illegal immigrants after the previous administration allowed 21 million illegals to cross our border.
I am not here to listen to rhetorical responses. I would like to have a professional response that I would expect from somebody who is the Secretary of Defense.
What you're about to watch is a tense moment inside a U.S. Senate hearing. Mazie Hirono questions Pete Hegseth, not with small talk, but with serious concerns. She asks if he would shoot American citizens, defy a court order, or ignore federal courts. His responses, or lack of clear answers, say a lot.
Secretary Hegseth, you've had a tough start. At your confirmation hearing, my Democratic colleagues and I rightly questioned whether you had the requisite qualifications and experience to lead the DoD, the largest federal agency, especially given your checkered past, which included paying $50,000 in hush money to settle a sexual assault allegation against you, and driving 2 veterans organizations into the ground. After only months on the job, our concerns about you have proven true, as far as I'm concerned. Instead of strengthening national security, you've turned the Pentagon into a dysfunctional mess. You are jeopardizing military operations and service members' lives with your unprecedented action of texting classified military plans to anyone who might stroke your ego. Leading the Department of Defense is more than just a PR campaign filled with photo ops. While you pose for cameras, Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine continues unabated. Israel and Iran are also at war, in large part because your boss tore up a multilateral agreement former President Obama brokered with the UK, France, Germany, China, and Russia that curbed Iran's nuclear program and ambitions. Meanwhile, China advances in the Pacific as this regime undermines and attacks our allies. At a time when steady leadership is critical, we are confronted with crisis and instability. Mr. Secretary, close to 5,000 Marines and National Guards have been deployed to LA without the request or consent of the California governor or the Los Angeles mayor, Bass. Rather than calming the situation, this troop deployment is purposefully inflaming and escalates tensions. You claim lethality is your top priority. Do you plan to unleash this lethal force against U.S. citizens and civilians in LA and other cities?
Well, Senator, I would reject most of the characterization of that statement, including lethality against U.S. cities, when all of those National Guardsmen and Marines have conducted themselves with the utmost of professionalism, defending our federal agents, Americans, who deserve to be able to do their job to deport illegal immigrants after the previous administration allowed 21 million illegals to cross our border.
I am not here to listen to rhetorical responses. I would like to have a professional response that I would expect from somebody who is the Secretary of Defense. Millions of people peacefully demonstrated this weekend against the president's acting like a king. Given this regime's dangerous policy of mobilizing troops inside the U.S., the politicizing of the military is a legitimate concern. So, given the dangerous policy of mobilizing troops inside the U.S., if ordered by the president, I'm going to ask you once again, to shoot peaceful protesters in the legs, would you carry out such an order from the president?
Senator, as I've said before, of course, I reject the premise of your question and the characterization that I would be given or are given unlawful orders. It's all meant to attempt to smear the commander-in-chief, and I won't fall for it.
Considering that the president in his first term actually ordered such a thing, it is not a premise that you can reject. He can order, do the same thing. So you're, again, I think you would just follow what the president wants you to do. Let's face it, it is not normal to call up our troops in this way And there is active litigation against this deployment. Will you follow a court's order regarding whether or not this deployment is legal? If the court says this deployment of troops into our cities is not legal, would you follow that court's order?
It's pending in the courts, Senator.
Well, when the court decides, would you follow that court's order decision?
I don't believe district courts should be determining national security policy,
So
but
you will not be following that.
when it goes to the
it's a
Supreme Court,
legitimate
we'll see.
Court. And unless the president decides to appeal, there you have it. So I take it that you don't consider district court decisions to be legitimate. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Let's slow this down and really look at what just happened. Senator Hirono does not open with a question. She opens with a list. The hush money settlement, the veterans organizations he ran into the ground, the Signal group chat where classified military plans were shared, the photo ops while wars continue overseas. She builds the case against Secretary Hegseth before she ever gets to policy, so that by the time she raises her sharpest concerns, the audience has already been given a reason to doubt the man sitting across from her. That sequence is not accidental. That is a deliberate rhetorical strategy. Then Senator Hirono does something striking. She takes Secretary Hegseth's own word, lethality, the word he used to describe his top priority at the Pentagon, and she throws it back at him. She asks whether he plans to unleash that lethal force against American citizens in Los Angeles. She is making him own his language in the most uncomfortable possible context. His response is to reject the premise. That phrase, reject the premise, is one of the oldest deflection tools in political testimony. It sounds calm and principled, but notice what it does not do. It does not answer the question. Secretary Hegseth reframes the question as unfair, then shifts into talking points about deportations and the previous administration. He never says, "No, I would not order troops to fire on Americans." He says the question itself is wrong. Then comes the moment most people will remember from this clip. Senator Hirono asks Secretary Hegseth directly, if the president ordered him to shoot peaceful protesters in the legs, would he carry out that order? And she is not making up a wild scenario. She points to documented evidence from the president's first term, where similar orders were reportedly discussed and, in some cases, attempted. She is not speculating. She is citing the record. Secretary Hegseth again rejects the premise. But Senator Hirono will not let him move on. She presses, and then she says something quietly devastating. She says, "I think you would just follow what the president wants you to do." That is no longer a question. That is a verdict, delivered calmly, on camera, in front of the country. The final part of this exchange is where things get genuinely serious, if you follow the logic all the way through. Senator Hirono asks Secretary Hegseth clearly, if a federal district court rules that the troop deployment into American cities is illegal, would he follow that court's order? He stalls. He says it is still pending in the courts. She presses again. And then Secretary Hegseth says it plainly. He says he does not believe district courts should be determining national security policy. Read that back slowly. The Secretary of Defense of the United States is sitting before the Senate, suggesting that federal court rulings may not be binding on him if he decides the issue falls under national security. Senator Hirono gives him every chance to walk that back. He does not take it. She ends the exchange without raising her voice. She simply says, "I take it that you don't consider district court decisions to be legitimate." She does not need volume. The silence after that line does the work. Now, who benefits politically from what you just watched? Senator Hirono and the Democratic Party benefit from the optics here. She is specific, composed, and relentless. And every moment she pins Secretary Hegseth down, the visual contrast works in her favor. The clip is short, shareable, and lands hard with audiences who are already skeptical of this administration. On the other side, Secretary Hegseth and his supporters can read this exact same clip very differently. His calm deflections can be sold as composure under unfair attack. His rejection of the premise can be framed as refusing to play along with political theater. And his talking points about deportations and illegal immigration are aimed directly at a base that wants to hear exactly that framing. But here is what cuts through all of that framing on both sides. Courts are not a partisan issue. The rule of law is not a partisan issue. Those are structural foundations of how this country operates. And when a sitting cabinet official implies that district court rulings may not govern his behavior, that is not a political statement. That is a statement about who holds power and who gets to decide what the law even means. That is what this clip is really about. Not the personalities, not the back and forth, not the score settling. It is about whether the institutions designed to check executive power still have real authority, or whether that authority is now conditional on the approval of the people being checked. So here's the question I want you to sit with and leave in the comments below. If Secretary Pete Hegseth believes district courts should not determine national security policy, where exactly does that exception stop? And who decides what counts as a national security question? Drop your answer below. And if you want more breakdowns like this, slow, clear, and focused on what actually matters, hit subscribe. Because these moments deserve more than a reaction. They deserve a real, close read.